In this video, I'm going to go through the 32 colleges with the most current NFL players and find out who is the best current player from each college. I'm sure everybody is going to agree with my opinion on this one, but if you don't, let me know in the comments. If you enjoy the video, subscribe and like, and let's get into college with the most current NFL players. Alabama, Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is probably a top 3 running back in the NFL and most likely number 1 on most people's rankings. He has consistently been the most dominant running back in the league for the last couple of years, rushing for 5,563 yards in the last 4 seasons, and he only played 8 games last season after going down with an injury. Runner-ups for this spot worth mentioning: Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Marlon Humphrey, or Minkah Fitzpatrick are all really good players, but none of them are able to top the king. LSU, Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is a top 5 receiver, no questions asked, having arguably the best start to a wide receiver's career of all time. In just his first 2 seasons racking up just more than 3,000 receiving yards, he already is and is going to be a top receiver in the league for a really long time. The runner-ups for this award are the 2 teammates in Cincinnati, in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and the Bills cornerback Tre'Davious White. However, this spot goes to Jefferson. Ohio State, Nick Bosa. I give this one to Nick Bosa as I prefer him over his brother Joey Bosa, and as close as it is, I'm taking Nick Bosa. Nick is a top-tier defensive end, which is the most important position on defense, and a Defensive Player of the Year award is certainly in his future. This spot really came down to one of the 2 Bosas. However, honorable mentions are Corey Linsley, arguably the best center in the NFL, as well as Marshawn Lattimore and Denzel Ward, the 2 cornerbacks, and Terry McLaurin, a super underrated wide receiver who got paid not too long ago, so yeah, he's really good too. Georgia, Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is another top 3 running back in the NFL alongside Derrick Henry. Don't worry, I'll get to the other one very soon. Nick Chubb started off his career very strong after his first 4 seasons, rushing for 4,816 yards and 36 rushing touchdowns. And with the whole quarterback controversy behind Deshaun Watson and Baker Mayfield this offseason, Nick Chubb is going to have to put the team on his back for most of the upcoming season. Not only runner-up for Georgia is Matthew Stafford, who has been one of the most consistent quarterbacks of the last decade and who finally got his ring last season, so congratulations, Matthew Stafford. Michigan, I mean, come on, it's not even close. It's Tom Brady. The best football player of all time is still a top quarterback, and honestly, not a ton of competition here. Rashawn Gary is a really solid edge rusher on Green Bay, and maybe in a future list we will see Aiden Hutchinson here for Michigan, but for right now, it's still Tom Brady. Florida, Kyle Pitts. I promise you this is no bias at all. While Kyle Pitts is one of my favorite players in the NFL and one of my favorite prospects going into the draft ever, he is still the best current player from Florida. In his rookie season last year, he had a very solid statistical season, having more than 1,000 receiving yards, and while he is yet to score a touchdown in the United States, after scoring only 1 last season in London, he is still one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Notre Dame, Quentin Nelson, one of the best guards in the league and has been since he's been drafted. Quentin Nelson is one of the main reasons for the success of the run game for the Colts and a heavy help to the success that Jonathan Taylor had last season. Quentin Nelson is the best player from Notre Dame that is currently playing in the NFL, and it's really down to him or Zach Martin, who's probably the second best guard in the league. It's really a toss-up, but I prefer Quentin Nelson over Zach Martin just by a little bit. But if you want to switch it, it's really fine. It's really 1A, 1B for me. Oklahoma, Trent Williams. Now, Oklahoma has a lot of talent that could be considered for this spot with the likes of CeeDee Lamb, Kyler Murray, Mark Andrews, Joe Mixon, or Creed Humphrey. However, Trent Williams being probably the best offensive tackle in the NFL, or at worst top 3, it's hard not to put him here in this spot, being named to first-team All-Pro last season, making him probably the best tackle in the NFL. Iowa, George Kittle. This is a super tough one coming down to 2 players, either George Kittle, who is the guy I selected at this spot, or the best right tackle in the NFL in Tristan Wirfs. Now, if you think Tristan should be here, I'm perfectly okay with that. Going into his junior season, he was already the consensus first-team All-Pro right tackle last season. However, George Kittle is one of the best tight ends in the NFL, being able to dominate in the run game and be a reliable weapon in the passing game. This one can go either way too. I just prefer George Kittle a little bit more over Tristan Wirfs. Penn State, Micah Parsons. This one isn't close at all. Micah Parsons is the obvious choice for Penn State. With solid players like Adrian Amos, Chris Godwin, or Mike Gesicki, Micah Parsons is already, after his rookie season, one of the best defensive players in the entire league. And if you want, you can make an argument he's a top 5. And honestly, I wouldn't even hate that take. After running away with the Defensive Rookie of the Year, after racking up 84 total tackles, along with 13 sacks, you have to respect the dominance he showcased after just one season in the league. And this one is going to make a lot of people mad. There are a lot of great players from Clemson. To list off my options: DeAndre Hopkins, Grady Jarrett, AJ Terrell, T. Higgins, Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, or Hunter Renfrow. As unpopular as this might be, I'm going to have to give this one to AJ Terrell. If you're not on the AJ Terrell hype train yet, I'm going to put you on to one of the most underrated cornerbacks in the NFL. After making the second team All-Pro last year, he had an unbelievable season where in his sophomore year, he only allowed 417 yards, only allowing 43 completions and 86 targets. Comparing those stats to the best cornerback in the NFL, Jalen Ramsey, he allowed more than 200 yards more than him after allowing 624 and a 59% completion rate to AJ Terrell's 50%. Don't sleep on AJ Terrell, he's that guy. And after a season where DeAndre Hopkins was hurt for a lot of it, he's going to miss a lot of next season as well. I feel pretty comfortable giving this spot to AJ Terrell. Washington is down to 2 guys, Budda Baker or Vita Vea. Again, this one is super tough. People are going to disagree, but I'm going to give this one to Vita Vea, arguably the best nose tackle in the league, and a huge part of the success of the great Buccaneers defense the last couple of years. Texas A&M, Myles Garrett. This one isn't close unless you think Ryan Tannehill is better than a top 2 edge rusher in the league. But no, for real, Von Miller went to Texas A&M. But in 2022, Myles Garrett is miles better than Von right now. But I just want to show my respect to Von Miller because he's one of the best edge rushers of all time. Garrett is on the same level as talent, with TJ Watt and Aaron Donald. He's insane. I don't feel like I have to keep going on. We all know how good Myles Garrett is. He might be an early pick for Defensive Player of the Year next season. But yeah, Myles Garrett for Texas A&M. Now for Florida State, Jalen Ramsey. Another notable players for FSU is Delvin Cook, Derwin James, Brian Burns. Florida State is pretty strong, but it's Jalen Ramsey. I just mentioned him and said he was the best cornerback in the league when we were talking about AJ Terrell. Again, I feel like I don't really need to keep going on about why Jalen Ramsey is so good. We all know he's great, so I'll just keep the video going. Wisconsin, TJ Watt. Wisconsin has had a couple guys that could be considered if it was about 3 to 5 years ago with Russell Wilson and JJ Watt, and a really good tackle right now for the Saints in Ryan Ramczyk. Oh, and the best running back in the NFL in Jonathan Taylor. But again, it's TJ Watt. He just won the Defensive Player of the Year award last season after tying the single season sack record at 22.5. We just had a stretch where we went Myles Garrett, Jalen Ramsey, TJ Watt, 3 all-time greats on defense, which is pretty cool. The next college is the USC, and for that school I got Leonard Williams. This one really being down to a couple guys depending on who you prefer as either a player. So for me, I chose Leonard Williams, who I believe is the best, but it could also be Juju Smith-Schuster, Michael Pittman, or Tyron Smith. I probably like Leonard Williams for the fact to stop the run game at a high level. I think he brings a value that nobody else here does. For Oregon, this one's going to be Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is that guy, and in his first 2 seasons, he had one of the best starts to a career by any quarterback ever in his first 2 seasons. He has a total of 9,350 total passing yards with a career average of 62.2 completion percentage. Another notable option here is DeForest Buckner. However, I got to give it to Herbert at this spot. UCLA, Kenny Clark, one of the best nose tackles in the league, in my opinion. The best current player from UCLA. I know a lot of people are going to tell me it's Eric Kendricks, but I lean towards Kenny Clark. He had a phenomenal season last year, and the value he brought to Green Bay's defense, I just can't justify having Eric Kendricks over him here. Texas, Justin Tucker. Don't get me wrong, Justin Tucker is the best kicker of all time, and he's awesome, but Texas literally has nobody except Quandre Diggs. Hopefully next year, Texas has some top draft picks like Bijan Robinson, and he can take the spot in the future. But yes, the only kicker on this list, Justin Tucker for Texas. For Auburn, we got Carl Lawson. Carl Lawson is a very underrated edge rusher who everybody kind of forgot about because of his injury super early last season. But on this super young New York Jets defense, he's going to be one of the bright spots, so watch out for him. There's a couple guys in the running here. Carlton Davis, Darius Slayton, Braden Smith. However, I think Carl Lawson is the best out of the bunch. South Carolina, Deebo Samuel. This one is really a simple one. Deebo Samuel lit the NFL on fire last season after showcasing his ability to just be a weapon on offense, being a phenomenal wide receiver and a really good running back. And with not much competition for South Carolina, you have to give it to Deebo Samuel. For Tennessee, it's Alvin Kamara. Not even really close. Alvin Kamara is the pick for Tennessee. Even with the suspension next season, he is still really the only guy I can give the spot to. Alvin Kamara is a borderline top 5 running back and has consistently been one of the best offensive weapons in the last couple years. For Miami, Florida, I have Calais Campbell. It's really down to two guys here, Calais Campbell or David Njoku, or maybe in a few years we can see a guy like Greg Rousseau taking the spot. As old as Calais is, I still think that he's better than David Njoku, so that makes him the best current player for Miami. Stanford is going to be Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey has battled lots of injuries the last couple seasons, making him hard to rely on and really making him hard to rank in these spots like these. Luckily for him, Stanford has almost no competition at this spot other than Blake Martinez, and I'm still taking Christian McCaffrey over him at this point. When McCaffrey is playing, he's still one of the best running backs in the NFL. For Ole Miss, I have DK Metcalf. It's down to two guys, and I know this spot is going to be the most controversial. One of two wide receivers, DK Metcalf or AJ Brown. I'm going to have to lean DK Metcalf just out of preference. If you think AJ Brown is better, I won't argue with you because they are very similar, and this spot can really go either way. For Mississippi State, this one is probably the hardest college to pick just one player from. A lot of guys are all in the same tier. So the options for Mississippi State are Dak Prescott, Darius Slay, Fletcher Cox, Jeffrey Simmons, or Chris Jones. And I think I'm going to have to give this one to Dak Prescott just because of positional value, and it's easier for me to say Dak Prescott is better than all three defensive tackles rather than having to just pick one of them. Dak Prescott has been a top 10 quarterback for years now, so I'm going to have to give him the spot for Mississippi State. For Nebraska, I have Levante David. Nebraska comes down to two players, Levante David or Randy Gregory. And while Levante David might be getting older and slowly regressing, I still think at this point he's better than the new Bronco, Randy Gregory. Levante is still one of the best inside linebackers in the NFL and is a huge part on the Tampa Bay defense. For Arkansas, I got Frank Ragnow. This spot goes to Frank Ragnow, no competition, one of the best centers in the league on one of the better offensive lines. California, I'm going to have to go Aaron Rodgers. This one is pretty tough. It really comes down to Aaron Rodgers, who's pretty good, or Jared Goff. I'm obviously kidding because that's going to go over some people's heads. The back-to-back MVP is a clear choice and is the easy pick for California. Virginia Tech is going to be Wyatt Teller, one of the best guards in the league, who really broke out a few seasons ago out of nowhere, is the obvious choice for Virginia Tech. Doesn't have a lot of competition. For North Carolina, I'm going to have to go with Robert Quinn. North Carolina comes down to two players, either Robert Quinn or Javonte Williams, the running back for the Broncos. In the future, I'm sure Javonte will take the spot. Right now, Robert Quinn is one of the most underrated edge rushers in the league and is a veteran. Just had one of the best seasons of his career last year. For the final college of the video, it being Utah, has some hard choices to make, down to Marcus Williams, Garrett Bowles, Devin Lloyd, Jalen Johnson, or Tim Patrick. With Devin Lloyd not having played a game yet, I have to pass on him for now, so I'm going to give it to Garrett Bowles, the star offensive tackle on the Broncos, who struggled for the first few years of his career, but took a huge leap a couple seasons ago, and is now one of the more underrated tackles in the entire league.